everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about capturing your characters in a moment. Creating circumstances surrounding the characters really helps to make your drawings feel alive. I'm going to really delve into how you can use color to make your characters stand out and to create feeling and emotion, and also how to create the circumstances surrounding them little by little. I don't get too deep into background and environments, but we'll delve a little bit into creating a circumstance where you capture them in that moment. So let's get into it. When completing my art this week, I was really in this mindset of, I wish I could be a fly on the wall of that character that I'm drawing. And I start drawing a character and I think, what would it be like if I could capture them in a private moment? A lot of times in New York, I would see people on the trains, and when they feel like no one's watching, they just kind of act like this very authentic version of themselves that they don't really show around anyone else. Since the dawn of internet fame and social media, I feel like we have really embraced this idealized version of ourselves that wants us to edit out the very charming but raw side of us that we don't often plaster all over the internet, and this has really influenced a lot of artists. We make everyone cute and perfect, almost as if it were a social media feed, because a lot of us artists are putting our work on the internet. However, I wanted to really experiment with the idea of getting to know the raw and unedited version of our characters, which I find to be really charming. So I'm going to share with you some different ways that I implement these details and character traits into my drawings to make them feel really personal, and that is what identifies the most with us. already starting with an artist. As you can see, he has paintbrushes, he has another big paintbrush, he's wearing a very loose top, baggy pants, typical free hair, very curly. So this guy is in the moment of creating something brilliant, and I wanted to really capture this with the cocked head position, where he is kind of looking to the side, as in, where did you come from and why are you interrupting my artistic process? And I really enjoyed that aspect of this drawing, because even just the position of the character's head and their stance, how he looks kind of uncomfortable and interrupted, and the brushes are just barely being held by his hands, as in he was kind of in the middle of something, just really helps to create the essence of his being interrupted. Additionally, his shirt being loose and crinkled at the sleeves and baggy at the pants also gives the idea that he's been working on something for hours on end and hasn't checked himself in the mirror to correct his clothing. These are all things that kind of contribute to the "you're interrupting me" moment, and helped to also create the essence of a creative and artistic person. In your artwork, there are a lot of different ways that you can make everything feel alive about it, and this is kind of difficult because you have to be intentional about things that have to look and appear unintentional, such as imperfections or mistakes in their appearance. The green splotches of paint that he got from painting all over the place, you have to find ways to make it look like he accidentally got them there, and you have to kind of study messy hair and these imperfect details. In this case, I also gave him a very small tattoo. You can give them little private, intimate aspects of their character, their traits that make them feel more alive and real. I also tried to make his stance very, like, I'm not paying attention to how I look right now, and that is another thing really hard to imagine because we idealize our artwork and we want them to look posed and beautiful. This is a drawing I drew off camera that I wanted to revisit for this video to tell a story about this character's private moment. And it goes without saying that the character isn't alone, but it doesn't mean that she has to be alone to be having a moment of reflection. I wanted to use color as a tool to isolate her from the rest of her environment and emphasize the fact that she's in her own world. I wanted to point out some of the details that some people might not notice until you look really closely at this girl. She's clearly on some sort of a mattress. I created little wrinkles in the fabric, and I also put a phone next to her where you see music coming out, little notes that are drifting away from the screen. This already makes everything feel kind of alive and like you are a fly on the wall. And I also, because she's so caught in her own thought, she actually is peeking a little bit of her underwear. Girl, pull your skirt down. Because when a girl is not paying any mind to her own appearance, sometimes things slip, so she's having a little wardrobe malfunction. And again, this points out the imperfections of the character that she's unaware of, because some people, when they're focused so much on their own thoughts, aren't even aware of their own self. And I love pointing that out in art, because this isn't something you'll just see unless it's in art or in a movie that someone wrote. The best piece of advice I ever received from my mom, who is also an artist, is that leaving one aspect to be unfinished about your drawing can actually make it feel more finished. It's kind of a contradictory statement, but if you think about it, if the entire drawing was filled in with color, it wouldn't really tell the same story. And it would feel more just like a random room where things are happening rather than you getting to know the girl just one-on-one. And you can really use unfinished elements of a drawing to actually emphasize one element that is finished. A lot of ways that painters do this is that they complete a very detailed, perfect portrait, and then they smear paint over half of their face or all over the hair or even over their body. Depending on the story you're trying to tell or the theme of the artwork, you can really emphasize the beautiful aspects with the abstract elements. For the last drawing, I did pull inspiration from a music artist known as Poor Stacy, and he is kind of an e-boy edgelord type of guy with great style, and I really wanted to pull inspiration from a look that I found of his, but I do interpret it a bit differently to try to tell the story that I intended to. I also used gel pen, which was a bit harsher than the typical ballpoint that I used to begin my drawing outline. And I think it also gave a much more aggressive, harsh appearance in the characterization. As you can see, I'm just really lightly sketching out his hair to start off for his own private moment. The best way I could describe this drawing is that he is in a train waiting for his stop and he is looking down at the floor, but clearly has a lot more going on in his mind than meets the eye. And I think that's a really cool thing to capture, because the idea that we don't always know what someone is thinking is really interesting. And I am currently reading a book where you get every single point of view of the same scenario, and every single point of view is different. And I think it's really cool that we can kind of use art as a medium to also tell the same story. We don't know what he's thinking about, but the fact that I can emphasize that he is very expressive with his appearance and his style, but we still don't know everything about him in this moment is a really cool thing to emphasize. biggest thing that I tried to really focus on with the color is the bright contrast. I use a lot of reds in the pants, as it is also printed and very expressive, and the shirt and layer of necklaces is a bit more tonal to contrast with the bottoms. So this is a bit more of a fashion-oriented drawing. Nevertheless, it still has a lot of character storytelling in his facial expression and stance alone. Well, that's a wrap for this video. Thank you guys for drawing with me yet again for another session. If you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing as I post every Friday new art videos. And if you have any suggestions for topics in the future, please comment below. I always look forward to hearing your feedback. Be safe, be well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.